Assalamu alaikum student. The topic of today's presentation is from the section 3 of your book Relationship of Organisms with One Another and with the Environment, and this is from chapter 18 Ecology. First of all, you need to understand what ecology is. Ecology is basically a branch of biology which deals with the interactions among the organisms and the interaction of those organisms with their environment. Previously, ecology was termed as environmental biology as it deals with the study of environment. The interactions that we are talking about here does not involve verbal communication. Rather, it involves that how the organisms are living in a particular environment, what they are giving to that environment, and what benefits they are taking from that environment. So this whole is termed as interaction. So organism to organism give and take, and organism to environment and environment to organism give and take is known as the interaction within a certain environment. Coming towards how ecology can benefit us. So basically the study of environment can tell us that what type of organisms are found in a certain place, how they basically interact with each other, what they are giving to the environment, what they are taking from it, and what changes take place in a certain place during a period of time. In short, ecology describes the relationship between living organisms and their environment. Now, coming towards the understanding of term ecology, ecology comes from two Greek words, oikos, which means house, and logia, which means study. So, study of the house or environment in which we live is known as ecology. Now, coming towards what environment is, how can you describe the term environment? So, whatever the surrounding or condition in which any organism lives is known as its environment. Environment for each of the organisms could be different. The term ecology was first used by a German zoologist Ernst Haeckel in 1866, and the idea of ecology was further elaborated by another scientist, Eugenius Warming. Coming towards another subtopic where we will discuss different levels of ecological organization. The levels of organization basically shows the arrangement of organisms from the simplest to the most complex ones. It shows the chain of life. Here we will see that which is the simplest component needed to start an environment. If you can recall, you have previously studied levels of biological organization in which you study the smallest thing required to start the makeup of a living organism, where you started from subatomic particles to atom, then cell, tissue, organ system, organism, and so on and so forth. But here, as we are discussing organization levels of ecology, so we will start with the simplest thing that can make up an environment. So here the simplest level of ecological organization is an individual. Individual is an organism which has its own unique characteristics. Its characteristics does not match even with the members of its own group. For example, two humans are there. Each one of them will be considered as an individual, although they both belongs to the same species of humans, but they two will not share 100% same qualities or characteristics. That is why they are considered as an individual. So individual is the simplest level from which an environment can be started. Next, when many individuals of the same species are grouped together, they form a population. Population is a group of organisms of same species living together in a particular area. It means population consists of same type of organism. For example, human population is a single type of population. Other populations include population of lion, it could be a population of rats, population of any type of plants, etc. When many populations combine to live together, they form a community. So in a community, you will find a group of different populations, such as population of animals, plants, and microorganisms combine together to form a single community. When the community of living organisms is combined with the non-living components of that community, they form an ecosystem. So basically the living community along with the non-living components together makes up an ecosystem. Non-living components include the soil, air, water, those which are not living. Then comes the biome, which is the group of different ecosystems having same climates and communities. Then the largest level of organization is biosphere, which refers to the area of earth occupied by living organisms. These will include all the areas of earth where life can be existed. This include atmosphere, that is the air, hydrosphere, that is water, and lithosphere, that is land. So all these three areas where life can exist combine together to form a biosphere. Here you can see the pictorial representation of the levels of ecological organization, where you can see that the simplest level is the organism or individual level, where single individual is present. Then comes the population, where the group of individual combines together and living together. Then comes the community, where different types of populations are there. Then we have the ecosystem, where the living components as well as the non-living components are combined together, in which you can see over here that the name of living components are written, and then grass, a stream, rock, air, the non-living components are also written over here. That makes up an ecosystem. Then comes the biome, which is not present over here, but it is there in between the biosphere and ecosystem. And then comes the biosphere, which is the living part of the earth. In this picture, you can see the examples of different individuals from different species. Here is the example of a population, in which you can see the population of a giraffe and zebra. This is an example of community, in which you can see different populations over here, the lion, zebra, hawk, different type of living organisms combined to make a community. Here comes the ecosystem, in which you can see this is an example of a pond ecosystem, where different types of living organisms are there, plus the non-living components are also included. Here you can see the biome chart, in which you can see that the world is divided into different regions according to the temperature conditions of the different ecosystems. And you can see that the ecosystems which are having the same climatic conditions and having the same dominant communities are grouped together into a same line in a pyramid. Next, biosphere, which is composed of all the three components: hydrosphere, lithosphere and atmosphere. That is the living region of the earth. Next, another terminology that you need to be familiar with during the study of this chapter, that is habitat. Habitat is basically refers to the natural home of any living organism. It is the type of natural environment in which any particular organism lives. This natural home is decided by a particular organism according to the facilities available for that organism over there. For example, the food, shelter, protection and the chances of reproduction. If an organism is finding all these facilities over there, that organism will reside there and it will become its natural home. Now coming towards the components or factors of an ecosystem, which basically defines as the combination of living and non-living environment of a particular system, is known as ecosystem. So ecosystem consists of two types of factors, abiotic and biotic. Abiotic are the non-living factors of an ecosystem or environment. It is also known as physical environment, and biotic components are also called as the living environment. Now, physical environment includes abiotic factors. This could be either chemical or any physical substance. For example, we have light, temperature, heat, water, oxygen, salinity, pH, wind, and so on. So many different abiotic factors are also there. Then comes the biotic or living environment. This consists of biotic components, which includes animals, plants and microorganisms. Here you can see a chart which is summarizing the components of an ecosystem. In abiotic components, we have two types of factors, climatic and edaphic factors. Climatic factors include rain, light, wind, temperature. Edaphic factors include soil, pH, minerals and topography, that is the surface of the earth. Then comes the biotic components, which includes producers, consumers and decomposers. Consumers are further divided into primary, secondary, tertiary and quaternary consumers. Now here you can see a bit of an explanation of abiotic factors, that how abiotic factors can influence the biotic factors or living organisms living in that particular ecosystem. First of all, the first abiotic factor is light. The intensity of light can definitely influence the distribution of living organisms living in a particular area, as the computation of light is an important factor for living organisms. Some of the plants require more light and some plants require less light. For example, climbers are a type of plants which basically for reaching the maximum light, for gaining the maximum light, they climbs up over the trunk of another trees. Some animals also adopted due to the intensity of light, they do not require so much light, so they move towards the dark cave. So basically here you can observe that the behavior of living organisms are greatly influenced by the abiotic factors of an ecosystem. Next is temperature and heat. As we all know that different animals and plants have different tolerance of temperature and heat. It definitely affects the physiological activities of the plants and animals living in an ecosystem, and most importantly the metabolic activities decreases when the temperature increases. So many of the organisms have to do certain adaptations in order to cope with the changing temperature of a certain environment. Next abiotic factor is the rainfall or water, because the amount of water present in any certain ecosystem greatly affects the distribution of plants and animals over there. On the basis of the amount of water present in any ecosystem, plants can be divided into four different types. Number one is hydrophytes. Hydrophytes are those plants which lives in a very high amount of water. For example, in the freshwater, aquatic, marine water, etc. Then comes the mesophytes. Mesophytes are termed as the land plants, which requires very moderate amount of water, and they can survive in that easily. Then comes the halophytes. Halophytes are those plants which have the ability to survive in the water containing very high amounts of soil. For this they have to make many adaptations in them as well. Then comes the xerophytes. Xerophytes are the plants which can survive in very low amounts of water, and they again have many adaptations to cope up with the dry conditions of the environment. Next abiotic factor is the oxygen. The presence of oxygen in the atmosphere also greatly influence the type of organisms and their adaptations as well. There are two type of organisms on the basis of the requirement of oxygen: aerobes and anaerobes. Aerobes are those organisms which require high amounts of oxygen for their survival, and anaerobes are those organisms which does not require any oxygen for their survival. So aerobes sometimes are present in certain conditions or certain environment where there is a deficiency of oxygen, so they have to make the adaptations to cope up with that deficiency of oxygen, otherwise they can die. So this oxygen concentration can also affect the growth and distribution of the organisms. Then comes the salinity, which is the salt concentration. It also greatly affects the organism. The problem of salinity is mainly faced by the marine organisms or aquatic organisms, you can say. pH is another factor which can also affect the organisms living in an ecosystem. Next come the biotic factors of an ecosystem, which includes producers, consumers, and decomposers. Producers, which are the main element of an ecosystem, which are the plants mainly. They can generate their own energy by the process of photosynthesis in the presence of sunlight and chlorophyll, and all the other living beings which are present in an ecosystem are basically directly or indirectly dependent upon the producers. Then comes the consumers. Consumers include herbivores that can directly eat plants, carnivores which eats other living organisms, and then omnivores which can eat both plants and animals. Then comes the decomposer, another very essential part of the ecosystem, because they can recycle the materials in an ecosystem. They basically break down the complex organic matter present in the soil and convert into simple inorganic substances and make them available from the plants to be used again and again. Otherwise, if the decomposers are not present in an ecosystem, then whatever the things are present in the soil cannot be recycled again and cannot be reused again by the producers. In the last, I am giving you an assignment. Three questions are there. You have to search out these questions from the book. The topics are also present in the book. You can search it from the net as well, and you have to note it down in your biology registers after making the index and writing down the syllabus. If you still have any query, we'll have a live session later on in which you can ask your queries, or you can also ask in the comment section. Thank you very much.